One of the things that you guys may not know is that Andre Joseph and I go to or went to the same top school in Boston called Emerson College. It's one of the top schools in the nation for people who love media and art, right? So we graduated at different times, but this place is like one of the most eclectic places. So that's where we got our foundational training. But then Andre Joseph, in his own right, has films that he has produced. He's got a lot going on, and he's in our tribe and community. And I would say, like, if you ever needed an opportunity to upgrade and just learn how to use video, this is the time to listen to him because all of us, raise your hand if you have a cell phone. All of us have cell phones. And those of you who watch later, you're going to need to hear someone like him talk about how to use these tools. And then he's going to share from his own heart, just a story of courage, how he's here today. So feel free, give Andre Joseph a round of applause. You appreciate it.
All right, how is everybody today?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. A little anxious, but I'm gonna get through it.
You got this.
So yeah, this I guess the segment was called Your Story Has Value. And so for me, I'm gonna talk about
Good.
I'd like the mic actually. That's good, thank you. Yeah, so for me, I'm going to talk about a lot of my experiences, how what I've learned in my near 20 professional year as a filmmaker, what my skills can do, not just in telling stories, but also, to build brands, to be able to sell products, to educate, to, you know, express yourself, because there's so much that goes into it that everybody thinks that, especially for me as a kid, the idea was, oh, you make movies, you're going to go out to Hollywood and make $1 million. And in this world, in this digital age, that has completely changed, completely. So, for people that don't know anything about me, my early beginnings start in Staten Island, New York, where I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood in which I had a lot of mixture of friends and a big family. So I was one of those kids that used to not like school that much. I was always waiting to get back home, watch any cartoons or movies that were playing on cable. My parents would take me to see movies like Roger Rabbit, Batman, and Ghostbusters, and like those things just mesmerized me because they took me out of the mundane everyday life of having to go to school, do your homework, and then you gotta go to bed, have your dinner, and all whatnot, and actually experience other worlds, other cultures, other people. And for me, like I always talk about how I used to like buy toys and try to reenact different stories that I saw on TV, and then create my own scenarios of different alternative ideas and things that are just coming out of my head out of nowhere. Sometimes I wrote them down, and then other times I just took figures, just played around with them. The one part I never always talk about is in 1992, I was at a party function at this called Smart Harbor in Staten Island. It's like a museum, and there's a children's section that actually had a TV studio in there. So I went into the studio by myself, and my dad was with me. He knew I was in there, so I wasn't going to get into any trouble. I acted like I was doing the Arsenio Hall show. Like I was doing a whole bit. Yes, like MC Hammer was there, and I did the MC Hammer dance. Little did I know, somebody was filming in the control room, and so somebody put that on tape. And actually, downstairs where a party function was going on, they were playing this on a loop on TV. So I didn't notice until after the fact. And this guy, Alan, that was doing the video program at the museum said, hey, your son should come in and maybe learn how to do video with us. So for a couple of weeks, I did a video camp where I learned just how to start and stop on a camcorder and different, 90s functions of what those VCR cameras used to do before, yeah, it's like the heck to do stuff we have now. So that always stuck with me to the point where I only got a video camera years ago. It was like in '94, and I had a lot of cousins that I used to see at my grandmother's place in Brooklyn, And so because we were always reenacting the stuff we were seeing on TV, we were like, hey, we should start filming these little skits. But because we're so young, he thought we were going to break the camera. And so like we were always just like dreaming at the idea of we're going to get a camera, get our friends, we're going to make movies. Wasn't until a summer vacation as I was just about to go into high school, and my mom just got a video camera and we made a few friends in our hotel. So I told her, hey, we got this murder mystery idea we want to do. Would you let us use the camera? And she actually said yes. And we shot this thing for a day. And that just began this entire journey of going from the backyard all the way to making 4 feature films now that have got play in film festivals around the world, on platforms like Tubi and Amazon, and people I never expected reaching out to me from places like England, Greece, China, even Puerto Rico. Like, just it's been unbelievable that you know I'm not living in Hollywood. I don't make millions of dollars, and I'm not on anybody's A list. But the fact that I was able to do work that built from the ground up and finds an audience through just the advancement of social media, it's still mind blowing to me. So when you talk about the power of storytelling through video, I think for me personally, a lot of it, as I mentioned before, is about escapism, escaping your norms, because there's so much, you know, we all have our chores, we all have responsibilities, and of course, there's a lot of heavy stuff going on in the world that kind of drags us down. So when we're watching a movie or watching TV show, music video, whatnot, those things give us some instant gratification. Just a brief moment of, let me put myself in somebody else's shoes. It could be a character, it could be a reality show, but you're seeing through the eyes of somebody else's perspective. And along the way, you're not only just making a discovery about the world, but you're also starting to learn something about yourself, what you want to be, what you don't want to be. And, there are, like for me as a filmmaker, I love movies where I can see people with my skin color succeed. No tragedies, no loss of life, just people that are doing the right thing, that are walking a fine line, that have a moral compass. And, those are the type of films that I always tend to gravitate to, in addition to the things that are fun and escapist. And, and in this digital age, why it's so important to be visible in this environment is because of the fact that we're all trying to express ourselves, we're all trying to be seen. And we're not just talking about like putting up a TikTok video and hoping you're going to get a large engagement, but it could be something as simple as just trying to get your message out there to an audience that may be underserved. And so, whether you're trying to promote a business, whether you're trying to make a statement, political statement, these things matter. And in a time where, like when I started out, when it was just me and this VHS camera, there was no audience. I didn't know how film festivals work. I didn't know how to like go out and get an agent to go and, get out to like a major studio. But the thing that happened was social media and the expansion of not just having people that are my friends and family to follow me, but radical strangers that are in my field, particularly like actors, other filmmakers, people who do lighting and sound, and you create these connections that grow bigger, and your life ends up expanding as a result. So it's so important that as you start to have more followers, more engagement, and you're building an audience, that you're also trying to be true to your authentic self, because you get very easily lost in this notion of, oh yeah, I'm a high celebrity, now everybody's like, liking everything that I do. But you got to censor yourself, because sometimes people will get lost in that notion, and that creates a lot of delusion that you don't need. So, in talking about the emotional connection through authenticity, and just to hear from others, I would say that this goes back to a movie that Dr. Law has been pushing since we can get called Dismissal, which I directed. Um, so this is a personal story because I've done a lot of different films, and many of which have been either action or comedic or even in the sci-fi realm. But I've never done anything that was like truly personal, like something that was terrible that I had to put onto film. So when I was a high school freshman, I went to a Catholic school that was co-ed, and he was in a not so diverse part of Staten Island. Um, and I basically, was one of the few black kids in my class. And there was a girl that I liked that was not of my race, and she had a couple of friends that didn't like me for whatever reason, and that just became a whole big to do. A lot of rumors that were being spread. There was just one rumor that I thought was a lot of BS, which was that I had written a hit list of students that I didn't like, that I wanted to kill. I heard this, and I'm like, That's nonsense." I thought it was a joke at first, so I just kind of dismissed it. I didn't even care. I just wanted to make movies. I just wanted to get for my classes and hang out with my friends. That was it. A few months later, the Columbine shooting happens. And the very next day, I get called into the guidance counselor's office. I didn't know why. I didn't think I did anything. He shows me a physical copy of this list with my email address on it. And I told him, I swear to God, that's not me. I did not write this. You can check my computer right now. I didn't have anything to do with this thing. Clearly, he didn't believe me. So they started to drag all my teachers down. They dragged my parents down to be interviewed just to find out, is this kid very quiet? Why is he dressed in a black trench coat? All these things. And eventually they're like, okay, well, maybe he didn't do it because nobody's really saying anything bad about him. And even my parents were very upset. So they went and said, okay, we're going to do a school wide assembly. We're going to try to dismiss this rumor, get the record straight. When they did the assembly, they never even talked about it. They just announced the school dance instead, and I was very pissed off. And I held that for a long time because then I ended up leaving that school after that. I went to a public school not far from me where I could just kind of get lost, not stand out in any way, shape, or form. And I carried that for a long time. I even when I went to Emerson and I saw that it was Boston and a mostly white student population, that made me nervous that I was going to go for that sort of thing. Thank God there was a group Ebony that I actually was able to go to, and there were Black Caucus of the school that I made some friends through. But it really ate at me for some time to the point where I had nightmares about it. And it did affect relationships that I had with friends and potential dates and just other things that were going on in my life for a long time. Then the pandemic hit. And like everybody else, I was home and George Floyd was murdered. There was an uprising, and people were telling their stories on social media about things that they had been through, being discriminated and sometimes just bullied because of their skin color, because of who they loved, or whatever the case may be. And so I wrote my story of what happened. And when I wrote this, somebody that I thought was a close friend of mine actually messaged me and said, "Oh, that's fake. That's fake unity." And I was like taken aback that somebody would say something like that and say that like my story was full of shit. Sorry to say, but that was what was happening. Instead of reacting or starting to fight like a lot of people do on social media, I said, you know what? I have all these other ideas I want to do, but now I want to do this story. I want to get to work. And so during that lockdown, I was fortunate I had a laptop. I had my program final draft to write my script. And I started writing this movie about a kid accused of something he didn't do, and he's in a mostly white pop prep school. And same sort of thing happens, but this time he actually has a teacher that stands up for him and gets to the truth. And not only would it be based on my story, but numerous stories that I was hearing in different schools around the country where there were issues of discrimination and hate and bullying that were just going underreported and completely thrown under the table. And so when I made this movie, we shot during COVID while places were still locked down. We were able to get a jazz school in Philadelphia that let us use their facility for classroom scenes and even places in Bucks County, because my mom doesn't live too far from the area. We were able to actually do like the lunchroom scenes in there. So I was actually recreating things that I had been through personally, and it was very cathartic. What got me through it was the fact that the cast and the crew were all behind the story. They all really understood what I was trying to do because I can authenticate it as somebody that lived that life and trying to tell it in the most honest, profound way. And when this movie started to go into festivals, the reactions were very extreme because so much of it was like people who had been through that type of thing were now telling me their stories and telling me about things that they went through, not just at school, but just in the workplace, or even teachers that feel discriminated or feeling like they have their hands tied because of red tape in the school system. So that changed me a lot because of the fact that I realized I wasn't just telling stories. Now I was creating a brand. I was creating a mission. And that mission being that I wanted to go out and take this film to places where maybe this film could make teachers more empathetic to students, make students feel like they could be seen and be heard if they feel like nobody else will ever understand what they're going through internally. And to me, I think that comes down to the fact that in making this film, it was about having confidence and building confidence. Because if I worried about what everybody else said or what everybody else thought, I probably would have just held it in and let it bubble up and just continue to make me upset. But the fact that I had the courage to get out there and to do it was something that, even to this day, I found to be very sobering. And, you know, I have a friend, his name is Ken Desham, who is a screenwriter who wrote Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I had interviewed him for a podcast I did, and one of the things he really taught me was that just being your authentic self is enough. Just being confident in who you are and what you have to express, what you have to say, what your life situation is. If you feel strong about that, your confidence will build, and then other people will see that. And so that's where I feel like for anybody that's going in front of video, and I know it can be very nerve wracking to be putting up a camera and you're filming yourself, promoting your brand, promoting your business, promoting a statement you're trying to make. Because none of us are multi-million dollar movie stars, actors, models, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we all have a story. We all have a place that we've come from that there are people out there that can relate to it that haven't heard us yet. And so, you know, that's the part where, like, once you get past that, then the other part that I can understand too is, well, it costs money to make video. Not necessarily in this day and age, because the barriers have been broken down so much from when I began that when it comes to making movies, you don't need millions of dollars. I know, like, on my first film, Priceless, I came out of college with that and thought, I gotta hire a camera, I gotta hire X amount of people on my crew, I gotta get these union actors. And I'm still happy with the film. I'm proud of what I did, but I couldn't get it into any festivals for various number of reasons. Just little mistakes that were made here and there. And for a second, I thought maybe I did something wrong. Maybe my movie's not good enough. But then when I started going to festivals with just the DVD and networking with people, they were kind of blown away by it. So it made me think to myself, what if I did stop myself? What if I just kept going until somebody said yes instead of no? And so what also changed in that experience was that for me to make content on video, I don't need to have this large crew. I don't necessarily need to have this high end lighting or this high end camera. We are in a day now where even your iPhones, your Androids are just as good as any major camera on the market. And I know that there are filmmakers out there that have been able to make movies that have made millions of dollars just on an iPhone. I'm not kidding on that. I've talked to distributors about this. So that is accessible. And you're talking about lighting equipment, Five Below. They got those ring lights for $14, just as good as any professional lights out there to make you look nice and shiny and professional. And even audio too. I mean, you could get good microphones like this or any kind of studio mics at affordable price on Amazon. So it's all out there. And even when you talk about locations, maybe you use your basement or you use something like your home office. It could be any place. You're using your resources that are around you without breaking the bank. So it's very possible. Whatever your brand is, whatever message you're trying to get out there, everything is accessible in a manner that you can present yourself authentically and build your brand from the ground up. Because that's what we got to win the people on the street. It's not just about trying to impress the higher ups, because the higher ups will be impressed when you have enough of a support system that's willing to come back to you time and time again, whatever your business may be. And so it's my hope through just this particular presentation that maybe you start to think about these things. And, you know, you don't necessarily have to go to school for it now. You can go on YouTube, or you can come to my studio in Jersey, in Elizabeth, where I can also teach that as well. But that's just my shameless cheap plug. But yeah, this is doable, everybody, and that's all I got.
Thank you so much.